So usually when people think of America and what you can do over here, people that desire to come over here, why they come over here, um, the just the outright freedom that someone has, the opportunities. That's what draws people here. That's what draws people to fight for anything. I mean, wars are fought for freedom. Wars are fought to be won, obviously, to be free from some kind of oppression, to be freed from some kind of hardship or difficulty. I mean, we can equate freedom to a lot of things. You know, I could even stretch it as far as to say that, you know, my wife and I, we work hard now. We put money back now, so later on, when we reach, you know, our cultural idea of retirement age, we can retire with freedom. We can retire with no debt. We can retire and not be strapped for how are we going to pay the bills. I'm going to continue to work till I'm 75. Do I have to do that, or am I able to be free, quote free, and enjoy that time? But how far do we take that idea or that term, and what does freedom even actually mean? Because I think that we have taken it so far in our culture to think that freedom literally means we can do whatever our hearts desire. And now we're to the point where if someone says otherwise, if someone stands in the way of us doing what makes us happy, what makes me happy, then you're obstructing that idea of freedom that I feel like I'm obligated to have. The power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants without hindrance or restraint. That sounds like a pretty good definition of freedom. But again, how far do we carry that? How far do we run with that? You know, obviously we have our laws and our Constitution and our government structure set up that helps define some of those guidelines that we need and sets up boundaries, if you will. But they can only do so much. They can only do so much. And for us as followers of Christ, for us in regards to Christians, well, we have the Bible to set up to help guide our moral compass, if you will, to help us understand what's right and what's wrong. And I strongly believe that that's how our nation was founded, is on those biblical principles. And we see God and the Creator talked about in our Declaration of Independence, in our Constitution. I believe that they had a biblical mindset in place when they put these things down. They help use that as their focal point and what guided them to their next decisions. So how much freedom as we as Americans, how much freedom do we need? Is it okay to have complete and open freedom with everything? And I would strongly say no, that we do not need that kind of freedom. The freedom to do whatever our hearts desire. There's something that dictionary.com states when it's defining this term licentiousness. And there's a guy I watch all the time on a podcast that talks about the difference between liberty and licentiousness. And simply put, licentiousness is just the ability to do what our hearts desire, no matter the consequences, no matter how good or bad it might be. And again, this part in dictionary.com states this: freedom entails responsibilities, or else it degenerates into licentiousness. So licentiousness is, again, it's this: there is no boundaries, there is no walls around this idea. But freedom, well, it entails responsibilities. We are free, we have freedom, but we have to be responsible with that within these walls. How do we use it? What do we do with it? What do we do with it? I mean, simply put, the idea of murder. Well, murder is wrong. Murder is punishable in our nation by jail time, prison time, or even death, depending on the location and the circumstance. Murder is wrong. So again, one could say that, well, I have freedom to murder someone. Well, sure, I guess you do, but there's going to be punishment. There's going to be something tied along with that. So again, this idea of freedom entails responsibilities. It entails something to go along with it. So again, I bring up this idea because it's, there's two things, and I'm sure there's more. I'm sure there's tons more. There's two things that kind of go along with this idea. A very popular one is the idea of abortion. The biggest argument you have made is, it's my body, it's my choice. I have the freedom and the right to do what I want to do. Okay. So again, with that freedom, we need to be responsible with we need to be responsible with the choices we make, with the direction we go. Just because you have the right to do it doesn't mean it's right. And I've mentioned Paul before in things that he shared with the church. It doesn't make it right just because you can do it. There is maybe not now, but I believe that there will be turmoil later. There will be regret later. There will be sorrow later. So just because we have the freedom to do it doesn't mean it's right, and it leads on to something worse. Another topic which isn't talked about as much, but I believe is hurting our society in a very negative way, and it's this idea of pornography. So there are some states, some cities, some groups that are trying to fight this, combat this this black hole, is what I would call it, that people get caught up in. And it's not good for you. It sucks your life out of you. It brings you down to low points. It makes you dependent and addicted to things that aren't I'm not even going to say aren't Christ-like, which they aren't, but it's not good for you, whether you're a believer or not. The effects that these traps have on you, it's not good. So again, one would argue, well, I'm looking at pictures or videos on my private time, my personal device. Mind your own business. It's freedom. I have the freedom to do this. I have the right to do this. Well, you're right, again, but it doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't mean it's what you need. It doesn't mean that it's positive and uplifting to you. I mean, because I want us to think about something for a second. If we put limitations on pornography, on abortion, the two that we mentioned, if we put limitations on them and made them illegal, if we made it illegal to perform abortions, well, I would assume that the numbers would decrease tremendously, because doctors would be held responsible for that, as well as the patient. If we made pornography harder to access and we treated it like we would treat child pornography, then the numbers would go down tremendously. If we give away the right to do certain things, then there's nothing to stop or hinder someone from doing it. But if we put limitations on things and we put an end to things that are disastrous for people, it's going to limit those things. So again, this is one of those gray matters for me. You got black and white, and you got somewhere in the middle. How much freedom do you give people, give a nation? Because if you walk in and you make all these rules and laws and put these ideas into place, and then you expect people to follow them, well, then you creep up to the line of the idea of a dictator of some sort, a king. Do what I say or else. How much freedom do we give a nation? Where do we draw the line? Where do we put our foot down at? See, it's hard to, it's hard for us and for any nation, any government entity to make decisions like these unless we have some kind of moral foundation, biblical foundation, religious foundation. What do we base anything on if we don't have those principles grounded in our rules and laws in our life? I mean, it's crazy. There's two stories that have the same topic that John writes about, that Jesus had with two different ladies. John chapter 4, Jesus encounters a woman at the well. She went up there at an odd time of the day to fill up her bucket, her jug, and take it back home. Jesus was there. He met her, and he asked her, I'm thirsty. Can you give me some water? They have some conversation. She tells him, well, you didn't bring a jug to get any water. How are you going to get it? Because he had talked about giving her living water. And so Jesus starts revealing some of the life choices that she has made, referring to her many husbands and things like that. And she's I'm sure puzzled at the idea that he knows these things. How do you know these things? How do you know this about me? And Jesus basically confronts the idea that she's a prostitute, that she isn't committed to one person. Again, she has the freedom to do what she wants to do. She's been doing it just fine. But it doesn't make it right, especially according to Jesus and to the standards by which the Bible's based, and the standard by which God and Christ use. We have a similar situation in John chapter 8, when a lady is pulled out to be stoned to death for committing prostitution. Again, this is a little different. So we have this government, which, I definitely would not say it's built on biblical principles. But we have this government who's going to punish her for what she's done. Again, punishment usually would mean reduction in that crime, in that situation. I mean, again, murder is made illegal, and if it wasn't illegal, I'm sure we would see more of it. Why wouldn't we? If there's no punishment, if there's no standard by which we use, then what's to stop them? What is going to be the guideline? So we have this lady who was caught in prostitution and pulled out and about to be stoned, and Jesus stops them by telling them, if you haven't sinned, if you haven't done anything wrong, then you go ahead and you throw the first stone. And they all left. They all left the lady there with Jesus. And Jesus asked, the lady asked Jesus where her persecutors were, and he basically said they went away. They all left. And he said that he doesn't condemn her, just as they didn't. But he also told her to get up and to go and sin no more, and to stop with the lifestyle that she's been going down. Again, making laws and making rules won't stop everything. People will be people. If you want something bad enough, you'll do it. You'll find a way to do it, no matter the cost, because you're not worried about the cost right now, or the cost later. You're just thinking about the reward right now. But again, where do we draw the line when it comes to freedom and this idea of licentiousness? Again, we say that everyone has freedom, living in this fantastic nation, this amazing nation that we live in, America. We have this idea of freedom that everyone has. But how far do we take that? How far do we run with that idea of freedom? This idea of freedom is dwindling away very quickly, I believe. And it's being turned into something horrible. The foundational idea of freedom based on our founding fathers and our biblical principles is dwindling, and the idea of freedom without responsibilities is increasing. We see this with media. We see this with big technologies. We see the power that they hold and possess on what can and can't be said. Yeah, you have social media, big social media companies, and you have big internet companies who are silencing people who have a different agenda or a different opinion than that of the beliefs they hold. And they have the power to do that. Again, one might call it freedom because it's America, it's their company, private company, they can do whatever they want to. But again, you have freedom in this box, and the box is built of responsibilities. What do we do with what we can do? What do we do with what we can do? Again, another silly idea. President Biden just made Juneteenth a federal holiday. There was talk of him replacing Columbus Day with this one. I think it was a year, maybe 2 years ago, that we as a nation even recognized Juneteenth. I never even heard of it before unless I saw it on my Apple Calendar on my phone. What in the world is Juneteenth? Again, President Biden has the freedom to do that, to make it a federal holiday. He has the power and the ability to do that. But what are the responsibilities that surround that? What are the repercussions for doing that? What are the problems that come along with that? Just because he has the right to do it doesn't mean he should do it. We need to start looking at the bigger picture for our nation, for our society, for individuals who are lured in by something, trapped by something, who face difficulties of some sort. We need to start looking at those and helping people with that, regardless of how they may see it. They may see it as dictatorship. They may see it as punishment. They may see it as pushing a religious agenda down their throat. I don't know. And part of me wants to say, well, frankly, I don't care. Because people who need help usually don't see it until it's later on down the line, and it's too late. I don't know. Again, this is one of those great topics, those situations where I don't know the right answer or even how to begin to implement something like that. But I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear different ideas or opinions you have on this. Message me in and say that, Ryan, you're completely wrong on your thinking. And obviously, if you're going to say that, then I would like to hear, your reasoning behind that and what ideas you have. But I think the only way that we can get better and get through some of these hard times, these difficulties in our society, and some people may not even see it as such. Heck, I see Gay Pride Month as a problem in our society. I see it as a huge problem. But we just keep promoting and pushing these immoral behaviors and just driving our nation further and further away from the Bible and from God. So again, if you have thoughts, I would love to hear them. If you like what you're hearing, just let me know. Give me a shout out. So, as always, I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you soon.